Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review the new live-action Beauty and the Beast that came out this past weekend. And I was super excited when they started announcing the cast for this film. I was a bit iffy on why they would want to remake this live action, seeing as when it really comes to remakes and reboots for me, I feel like they're films that had a great idea and didn't turn out the greatest originally, so that you want to take a step back, try to figure out some things, and then give it another go. They've done that with, so far, Maleficent, trying to give a completely different perspective on changing things. I think they were so successful with Jungle Book because, to be perfectly honest, the original is just kind of a bunch of little short things all thrown together and doesn't have a whole lot of substantive plot in it. And they went and they filled out things and really made a really cool experience with the new Jungle Book. In terms of this new Beauty and the Beast film, I think they did a good job. I enjoyed it, I had fun with it, but I felt like it could have been much better. There's things that they really did improve upon the original, but then some things just kind of fell flat. And that's what I'm going to be talking about. So this was directed by Bill Condon, who also did Chicago, and it was a really well paced and well told story. It never once felt boring. It was very smooth with transitioning from one thing to another. One thing that was a little awkward was transitioning into a song. And I really enjoy musicals, but you can tell when you're making a musical and things just awkwardly, it's like, oh, I'm gonna sing now, and it doesn't feel really natural and feels right. And I felt a lot of that kind of, let's sing about something while I'm singing about this other person who's literally standing right next to me, but they obviously can't hear what I'm singing about. And a lot of those musical stereotypes that feel off and awkward in trying to tell an actual story fell into this film. And I think one of the biggest things that they did that really disappointed me was their over reliance on CGI. Because to be perfectly honest, for a $160 million movie, it wasn't all that convincing a lot of the time. And there's parts where the Beast looked really good, and then there's parts that's like really awkward. And just like, I just felt like they should have made the Beast with an actual costume. I felt like that would have been much better, but they chose to do this. They did an okay job. Wasn't super convincing with the CGI a lot of the times. And one thing I do want to point out, the production design in this was absolutely fantastic. The costumes and everything, and how they brought this all together and made this a cool magical world when they didn't make it with CGI, I thought was really cool. And in terms of the cinematography by Tobias Schleisler, this had a really awkward, really too bright of a sheen to it most of the time, and it kind of felt cheap, at least with some of the cinematography, and that really disappoints me because obviously this is a really big budget thing, and it looks a little tacky at points, and there's a lot of awkward CGI shots along with the live action, like Belle looking at certain things, and you can tell it's just like, hey, Emma Watson, stare into the camera, smirk a little bit, and they show her, and then it cuts to a completely CGI shot that she's supposed to be looking at. It looks kind of awkward, and they didn't do the greatest job with that. And a lot of the sequences, like Be Our Guest, which is completely CGI, basically it looks like a cartoon. It's supposed to be live action, and they went full blown with it, and it was a bit much and looked a little cartoonish. And it's like, if you're going to make a live action film, then go for that. And I felt like that was a little unfortunate. There were also very jarring camera pans. Every time it panned really quickly from like a character to character, especially from the CGI characters, it actually hurt my eyes. And I'm like, that should not be a thing in a movie, especially with all this production that has gone into this. And so overall, the cinematography and the visuals were a little disappointing to me. In terms of the writing, which the script was written by Stephen Chbosky and Evan Spiliotopoulos. I am sorry if I pronounce those wrong. And overall, I thought they did a really good job of deepening the characters and giving them real motivations and the love affair between Belle and the Beast was so much more believable in this than, oh, he's like a child. I feel bad for him, so I'm gonna start falling in love. They actually made a connection, and some of the stuff that they added into this, some of it felt like complete filler to pad the 35 extra minutes this film had compared to the original animated film. But then there was also parts that really expanded on motivations and deepened the characters and the story and brought some really cool things to it. But there could have been some trimming. This didn't necessarily need to be 2 hours and 5 minutes. And especially with certain scenes and certain songs and expanding some of the songs, which now I'm going to get into talking about the music, which is a musical. Alan Menken did this music and he did the original. Most of the lines they added into the original songs to make them a little longer thought were really awkward and kind of stood out, and it's just like, why couldn't you just, this movie didn't have to be 2 hours and 5 minutes. I don't know why they chose, like, we must hit 2 hours as a live action movie. It doesn't have to be. And it felt like with some of the songs, and some of the songs that were added, which were not exactly the most smooth transitions into, except for the one, the Beast sings Evermore, and that song I actually really, really enjoyed, and I thought Dan Stevens did a fantastic job with it. So I was fine with that, but overall, I think the big thing that bothered me was that it didn't feel like a super serious production, and it felt like a B-rate performance of some of these songs. And except for the one that started, actually, the last half hour of this film was absolutely fantastic, and that started with the mob song Kill the Beast. That felt like a big epic musical song that felt like it had the size and scope of what this film was supposed to be. A lot of the other ones felt a little iffy and not really super big and showy like it's supposed to be, along with this size of a musical. But the thing is, I'm talking about a lot of negatives, but honestly, this film really did, from a story perspective and a character's perspective, actually did a better job than the original, in my opinion. Did a lot of the surrounding stuff kind of not fit as well? Yeah, but I feel like you got what you needed out of this film, hitting you with characters and story. I thought that was really cool. Talking about some of the performances, the big three that stood out to me, Dan Stevens as the Beast was fantastic. He had a nice wit about him, and he held himself very well as the Beast and made it more believable why Belle would actually fall in love with him. And his singing was actually really good. And the two that stole the show, though, were LeFou and Gaston, and they do a fantastic job, Luke Evans and Josh Gad, singing and really playing these parts and bringing some life to them. And there's all that controversy with LeFou being a gay character. Honestly, some of his innuendos and like subtle comments toward Gaston and stuff like that were some of the funniest lines in the movie, and I actually really enjoyed that. And I liked what they did with their characters. They felt more believable human beings, and I really appreciated that part. In terms of all the performances, honestly, from an acting perspective, I actually really enjoyed. I really bought into these characters. Emma Watson did a really nice job of me buying into Belle as a person and seeing where she's coming from. My thing is, there's a couple of the singing characters that, like, you could tell Emma Watson was auto-tuned, and I'm like, really? Why? Why'd you have to do that? And then two others in particular, Emma Thompson and Ewan McGregor, both do accents. And when they're just speaking and stuff, they're really cool, really solidly done impressions. But once you get to the singing, they don't feel natural, and they really. And I don't want to keep comparing this to the original film because the original film was the original film. They didn't feel right. They didn't feel natural. They didn't feel believable, especially when they're singing two of the most important songs in the film, Be Our Guest and Beauty and the Beast, and that kind of took me out of it, and that was pretty disappointing. But overall, I had a lot of fun with this. I enjoyed this film. From an actual, when you take a step back from a lot of the musical stuff and the CGI, this was actually really well made film, really hit you. I enjoyed the film quite a bit. I would really love to give this movie an A because I really wanted to love this film, but I did not. I didn't love it, but I did enjoy it, and I'm gonna give Beauty and the Beast a B minus.